Hey, what is up guys, and welcome back once again to another Fallout 4 settlement build. Today we're going to be back inside of our raider town, and we're going to be checking out this little tiny outdoor pub. Now keep in mind the left side isn't finished, but I figured it might be better that we just save that for a later date, so that way we could spend quite a bit more time on it. Not only in the building process, but also in the sort of show around. That being said, hopefully you guys enjoy the build, and without further ado, let's go ahead and take a closer look. Alright guys, so like I said, today we're going to be primarily focusing on this right hand side of the build, or more specifically the outdoor pub. This left side on the other hand is still under construction, and although it doesn't look that detailed now, keep in mind this is sort of how the casino looked when we first made it. But you can see here how much the build really ended up transforming. So I'd say the area we're working on now should be very similar to this once we get closer and closer to being done with it. And I think I may even try adding even more detail to the outside. Now at the moment you can see how this build is all nice, bright and shiny and has tons of detail, but really quick I'm going to show you a little picture of what it used to look like when it was just kind of bare bones. So hopefully that'll give you guys a better perspective of how much a build can sort of come to life if you take the time and effort to put a lot of work into both all the details of the build and also some of the simpler stuff like the lighting. By the way, for those wondering, the big neon sign is from the Signs of the Times mod. I have no clue where it's from in the game, but I would imagine it's actually in there somewhere. And the thing is, this is one I've always wanted to use, but once again, I have no clue what it really means. And honestly, the only way I convinced myself into thinking it would fit in this build was just the fact that this is a raider settlement, and that packy word on the right-hand side is pretty damn similar to just the pack. So I figured maybe this business could be run by them. Although since the building's still in the works, Codsworth is sort of the temporary bartender, although I kinda like him there, so who knows. Maybe he'll end up staying for the long term. Oh yeah, and also to kinda go along with the whole pack theme, I chose to throw in some of those weird looking mannequins too, with all the animal parts on them. So I think that really helped out when it came to making this look a lot more like it actually belonged to that specific raider group. I think I'd have to say that one of my main sources of inspiration for this build was definitely that noodle stand in Diamond City, so that's why it does look pretty similar and also has a robot as the main worker. But just keep in mind, if you're trying to build this on your own, you don't necessarily have to make the building next to it also be a part of it. So for instance, the pub could be something like it is right now, and then the building on the right could even just be something as simple as a hotel or just any other random store, really. But yeah, for those of you who end up trying to build something like this, I'd say one thing you definitely want to add in is something similar to this deck out here. I think that's one of my favorite parts about the build. And also the fact that it's not just a bar kind of out in the open, but it also has that roof over the top of it. So that way anything on or behind the bar stays dry should it rain. Now I know that doesn't really make too much sense, seeing as how this build is inside of a cave, but for those of you who decide to build elsewhere, I think that would be a more realistic aspect of it. Now in terms of what's on the bar, sort of similar to the gun store and the shooting range, I tried to make sure that each section sort of had its own personality, so this chair on the far left doesn't have too much going for it. But I figured the stopwatch alone might signify that maybe whoever's sitting here is in a hurry and has to be somewhere eventually. Whereas the area over to the right is more likely a place where a younger raider is sitting, and that's why he's drinking the non-alcoholic Nuka-Cola Quantum, along with a more youthful item compared to the stopwatch, which in this case is a comic book. Now moving over even further, I figured this spot here might belong to someone who recently lost their wife, most likely to some kind of divorce or split, and that's why he's got the ring just kind of thrown out on the table, along with a bottle of whiskey and a cigarette, just to kind of imply that maybe he's a bit stressful at the moment. And for this spot here, I'd say it just belongs to your regular old triggerman, nothing too crazy. And then if we move over, once again, this corner spot here, I tried to make it seem as if maybe these people were a couple or just two friends, and that's why there's multiple shot glasses but only one bottle of rum. And then that old Boston bugle that maybe they're kind of glancing over and talking about. Then lastly, we have probably my favorite area of the bar, and this is where some guy has just brought all his tools to kind of repair his old pipe rifle, and he's also got a few drinks as well, just to quench his thirst. So with all that covered, hopefully you guys are maybe getting some inspiration and ideas, and at the end of the day, I think the main thing to kind of pick up from this is that you really want to try to give each part of your build some sort of unique feeling and even some story behind it if you want, similar to what I've done here. Because I think all in all, that really just adds a whole lot more detail and in a way makes your builds a bit more enjoyable to revisit later on. Because in my game at the moment, Sanctuary has basically nothing, so I don't really find myself venturing that far north ever. But that boxcar town that we finished, on the other hand, is one I continue going back to. But anyways guys, I think that's just about gonna do it for today's build. Once again, we'll get to the section on the left as soon as possible. And by the way, that's just gonna be some sort of diner, maybe mixed with a bit of a bar as well. I was thinking maybe doing something similar to the one in Rage. Not sure how many of you have played that game, but one of the main cities in that game had a pretty atmospheric type of bar that I really enjoyed, so I think I may try and replicate that in a way. But yeah guys, with all that out of the way, hopefully you did enjoy the video. Feel free to let me know what you thought down in the comments, or if you have any ideas for future builds we could try in this Raider town, I would love to hear those. I think pretty soon in terms of builds, we may want to try some sort of arena down here, maybe similar to the combat zone. And we also need some sort of gateway or checkpoint here, so we'll have to try making something similar to that. But once again, thanks for watching, and as always guys, I will see you in the next one.